There was a time when I thought I was invisible. Not in a cool comic book way. I mean in the no one would notice if I disappeared way. I wasn't the middle child, or one of 6. I was the only kid my parents ever had, and somehow, I still felt like background noise in their lives. Growing up, they gave me the basics: food, a roof, an occasional reminder to go study. But love? Encouragement? A pat on the back after a hard day? That stuff was reserved for other families. I never had real friends either. I don't mean that in a dramatic, woe is me kind of way. I just didn't. Some kids got birthday parties. I got cold silence and microwaved leftovers. Others got group chats. I had my old iPod Classic, a cracked screen, and Kanye West's early albums. Hey Mama used to hit so hard, it almost felt like a joke. My world was tiny. Get up. Go to school. Work part-time delivering pizzas. Pretend I'm not exhausted. Go to bed. Repeat. My college was nothing special. A concrete box of low budgets and flickering fluorescent lights. I paid for it myself, because my parents, in their infinite wisdom, only gave me money for lunch. Not books. Not rent. Just lunch. Like I was some side character in their sitcom who only shows up when it's time for dinner. I was working long hours, and it showed. My gut had become a reluctant companion, one I carried in every mirror, slouched over in every elevator reflection. My face had this semi-permanent 5 o'clock shadow, not from style, but because I just didn't have time, or energy, to care. But somehow, it wasn't depression. It was more like waiting. At night, after my shift, I'd walk. Just walk. Headphones in, volume up, and nowhere to be. I liked the stillness. The way the streetlights turned the cracked pavement gold. The way the city hummed just enough to remind me I wasn't totally alone. My favorite spot was the bridge near the train tracks, quiet, isolated, with a view of the highway below. I'd lean on the cold metal railing and watch the headlights move like veins under skin. And no, I wasn't thinking dark thoughts. I just didn't know where I was going, and standing still felt safer than moving in the wrong direction. What do I want to be? I used to ask myself that a lot. Not in a resume way. In a real way. Like, who the hell am I supposed to be when I feel like nobody ever saw me in the first place? Some nights, I'd catch my reflection in a gas station window and wonder if I'd turned into the person I used to pity. But that night, something shifted. It was subtle. The air felt different. Like the kind of chill before a summer storm. I don't believe in signs or fate or any of that Hollywood nonsense, but there was something in my gut. A weird ache. Not pizza-related. Just a feeling. A whisper that said, "Tonight matters." I laughed at myself for even thinking it. I had one more delivery. One more customer. One more knock on a stranger's door with a warm box of Forcheese mediocrity. The soles of my Jordans squeaked with every step. They were old, mismatched laces and all. The left one had this crusty spot that looked like it had survived a barbecue and a flood, at the same time. But I loved them. I loved them because they reminded me of who I used to be, when I still believed that cool sneakers could make me feel powerful. I was walking up to the last house when the lace on my left shoe untied. Typical. I bent down to fix it, muttering under my breath. When I looked up again, I froze. There, across the street, was a familiar silhouette. A man in glasses, a tailored jacket, and shoes too clean to belong in this part of town. My heart skipped. My pulse jumped. It was my uncle. I hadn't seen him in years. "Is that you?" His voice broke the silence like a record scratch in the middle of a symphony. I turned around, blinking in disbelief. It was definitely him. Uncle Ray. He looked like he'd walked straight out of a GQ spread, just minus the smug attitude. Slim-cut navy blazer, wire-framed glasses, fresh sneakers that practically glowed in the moonlight. He always had this effortless cool about him, like the kind of guy who never lost his car keys or spilled mustard on his shirt. I hadn't seen him in years. Last time was probably middle school. He and my dad had some kind of falling out that no one ever explained. One day, he was at the barbecue cracking jokes and tossing burgers. The next? Vanished. But now, here he was. Staring at me. And I? I was holding a pizza box, wearing a windbreaker from 2009, and looking like I had just crawled out of a depression cave. My hair was a greasy mess, my shirt was clinging to my pizza sweat stomach, and I'm pretty sure my delivery bag was leaking garlic sauce. He took a step closer and squinted at me. "Holy crap," he said. "Kid, what happened?" My pride tried to step in. Tried to say something cool or casual like, "Oh, just working hard." But my mouth betrayed me with a shrug. "Life," I said. "It's been a ride." He scanned me head to toe, lingering on my sneakers. Now my Jordans were warriors. These shoes had seen it all: mud, snow, spilled soda, maybe a little vomit, not mine, I hope. The laces were mismatched, one red, one white. The sole on the left shoe flapped like a dog's tongue when I walked. One of the eyelets had snapped off last winter during an ice storm. I'd patched it with a twist tie. Uncle Ray tilted his head, like he was both impressed and horrified. "Those kicks," he said, "have been through the Great Depression, Vietnam, and 4 Coachellas." I laughed. I actually laughed. It startled me. He smiled, wide. Like he was proud I hadn't forgotten how to find things funny. "What are you doing out here?" he asked. "Delivering pizza," I replied. "Last order of the night." He frowned. "And college?" "Still enrolled. Barely. Paying my way. My folks, they just kind of exist. We live in the same house, but it's like I'm a ghost. Except when they need someone to take out the trash or pretend we're a normal family." There was a silence. Not awkward, just full. Full of words I didn't want to say and questions he was too polite to ask. He finally said, "I used to be like you." I blinked. "Doubt it. You look like you eat imported salad for breakfast." He laughed again. "There. But back in the day, I was the sneaker king of our block. Your dad used to call me a walking billboard for Nike." I tried to picture that. Him younger. Leaner. Maybe even broke. "I started a little shop a few years ago," he continued. "Boutique sneaker resale. Legit stuff. Hypebeast meets Main Street. It's doing alright." That ache in my stomach, the one I'd felt earlier, tightened. Something was coming. I could feel it. "You ever think about working with sneakers?" he asked. I blinked. "I mean, sure. I used to hustle lemonade in grade school just to afford Vans. Me and this older neighbor kid would flip them for a little extra cash." Uncle Ray's eyes lit up. "That's what I'm talking about." He stepped forward and clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Come by the shop tomorrow," he said. "Let's see if you still have that spark." I was stunned. That wasn't just a compliment. That was an invitation. Me. The invisible kid. The walking stomach with mismatched shoelaces. I looked down at the pizza box in my hands, still warm. Then I looked at my uncle, sharp, sure, real. And for the first time in a long time, something inside me whispered, "Maybe." I barely slept that night. Not from stress or anxiety, but from something much weirder: hope. It's like my brain wasn't ready for it. Like someone threw a surprise party in my skull and none of the neurons knew what to wear. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see my uncle's face. Hear his voice. Feel the weight of his hand on my shoulder. "Come by the shop tomorrow." That sentence had been replaying in my head like a hook on loop. I dragged myself out of bed the next morning still feeling like someone had beat me with a rolled-up syllabus. My back hurt. My knees cracked. And my t-shirt, for reasons unknown, had a dried piece of mozzarella stuck to the sleeve. Classic. But I moved differently. I showered. Actually stood under hot water instead of letting it mist my sadness. I shaved. I didn't just brush my teeth, I flossed. For the first time in I don't even want to say. Then came the hard part, choosing what to wear. Most of my clothes were somewhere between "this used to fit" and "are you homeless or just ironic?" I went with a black hoodie that was only lightly stained, and jeans that hadn't betrayed me in public yet. And of course, my Jordans. Yeah, the same crusty ones. I almost didn't wear them. I even tried on an old pair of running shoes I hadn't touched since high school gym class. But when I looked at myself in the mirror, something felt wrong. Those beat-up sneakers were me. They were part of every night I spent delivering food to strangers. Every silent walk under streetlights. Every cracked sidewalk that taught me how to keep going even when no one cared. So yeah, I laced them up. Even tied them tight. Uncle Ray's store was on the nicer side of town, one of those clean, minimalist boutiques where the walls are white and the price tags are tiny. The kind of place you pass by and think, I'm not cool enough to go in there. Even if you do have money. As I walked up, I saw the display window, clean shelves, spotlighted shoes, one floating Yeezy behind a rotating glass cube like it was some kind of museum piece. Inside, it was surreal. The air smelled like new leather and whatever candle scent rich people seem to love. There were mirrors on every wall, but they didn't make me flinch for once. Just standing there felt like stepping into a world I wasn't supposed to belong in, but desperately wanted to. Ray was behind the counter, typing something on a sleek little iPad. He looked up and grinned when he saw me. There he is, he said. The legend. I laughed nervously. You might be thinking of someone else. I'm just a guy who shows up late with cold pizza. He shook his head. Nah, man. You showed up. That already puts you ahead of most. He tossed me a spare lanyard with a laminated card. It said staff in clean block letters. I stared at it like it might bite me. You serious? I asked. Ray nodded. Start with shadowing. Watch the flow, learn the stock, listen to the customers. We're not just selling shoes, we're connecting people with pieces of their identity. Shoes are identity? He smiled. Oh, you really have no idea how deep this runs. That day changed me. I watched Ray interact with everyone, from the guy in the Supreme hoodie asking about Travis Scott collabs, to the mom trying to find her kid's first pair of Jordans. He wasn't pushy. He wasn't fake. He just knew. About sizing, about trends, about stories. And by lunch, I was already moving like I belonged there. I helped a customer find a rare pair of Dunks. She told me her son had been saving for them for months. When she saw them in his size, her whole face lit up. Like we'd just solved a tiny family crisis. It felt good. Really good. At one point, Ray came over and whispered, You've got good instincts. Stay curious. Stay humble. And learn fast. By the end of the shift, I was exhausted. But it wasn't the dead kind of tired I was used to. It was earned. Satisfying. As I left, Ray called after me. Hey, tomorrow, same time? And I said something I hadn't said to anyone in months. Absolutely. I thought the first day was a fluke. Like maybe the store had sprinkled some weird magic into the air vents. You know, temporary confidence, expiration by midnight. But I came back the next day. And the next. And every day after that, something started shifting inside me. Slowly, quietly, like when a rubber band stretches right before it snaps back. I wasn't just moving shoes anymore. I was moving with purpose. I learned how to greet people the way Ray did, not like a salesman, but like someone who actually cared. I started memorizing colorways, learning sneaker history, figuring out how to read customers' faces before they even said a word. It was weird. I never thought I'd be good at anything. I mean, when your own parents treat you like an afterthought, you start assuming they're onto something. Maybe I was forgettable. Maybe I didn't matter. But the store was proving them wrong. The customers remembered me. They'd come back and ask for me by name. One guy told me I had an eye for vibe, whatever that meant. Another gave me a $20 tip just for helping him pick between two sizes. I almost cried in the break room afterward. Ray noticed, too. One afternoon, we were unpacking a fresh delivery, box after box of Nike SBs and limited edition Yeezys, and he paused, looked at me, and said, You're not just good, man. You're natural. I didn't know what to say, so I just made a dumb joke about being born in a shoebox. But deep down, I held on to those words like a lifeline. At home, things hadn't changed. My parents still barely spoke to me. Dinner was a microwave meal and a silent living room. My dad occasionally grunted something about real jobs and wasting time on sneakers, while my mom just asked if I was still playing cashier. But I didn't care as much anymore. Not because it didn't hurt, but because now I had something else. A second home. A second chance. And those Jordans? My crusty, beat-up, tired old sneakers? They became a running joke at the store. One of the younger kids on staff, Malik, started calling them the battle-tested ones. Another guy said they looked like they'd been through a zombie apocalypse. Twice. I laughed along. Mostly because they weren't wrong. Those shoes had seen everything. Every rainy delivery night. Every awkward college class. Every lonely walk across the city. They were ugly. Faded. Scarred. Just like me. But just like me, they still worked. Ray caught me one day wiping them down with a little cloth we usually saved for the display pairs. I tried to act casual, but he just grinned. "Keep 'em," he said. "One day you'll put those on a shelf here, not because they're rare, but because they mean something." It hit me like a brick. Not because I suddenly saw my future mapped out. Not because I was ready to declare myself a sneaker prophet. But because, for the first time, I saw value in something I had always been ashamed of. In my shoes. In myself. A week later, Ray handed me a clipboard with a list of potential vendors. "Think you're ready to start hunting down rare pairs for us?" My eyes went wide. "Wait, you want me sourcing?" He nodded. "Yeah. You've got the instincts. You know the stories behind these sneakers. Let's put that to use." That night, I didn't walk home under the streetlights like I usually did. I jogged. And even though my Jordans squeaked with every step, like they were crying out for retirement, I didn't stop smiling the whole way. The first time I sourced a pair on my own, it felt like a treasure hunt, with anxiety. Ray handed me a list, circled one of the names in red, and said, "This is the one. If you get it, we'll put it front and center." It was a pair of Nike Dunk Low. Paris. Limited to 200 pairs worldwide. One of the holy grails. It might as well have been a unicorn wearing a Supreme hoodie. I stared at the list like it was a final exam. "How am I supposed to even find these?" I asked. Ray grinned. "You've got time, charm, and hunger. That's more than most people got." So I started reaching out. Forums. Reddit threads. Private Discord servers where guys with aliases like SNKR Savage and LaceGod84 posted photos of their collections in vaults that looked more secure than Fort Knox. I messaged, negotiated, got ghosted, tried again. Meanwhile, I was still clocking into the store every day. Still making sure Malik didn't leave the display pairs laced wrong. Still pretending I didn't hear my dad's voice in my head saying, "You think selling shoes is a career?" The difference now? I didn't care as much what he thought. Because the store was a career. And I was getting better at it. And while I was hunting unicorns online, I was still building something real in the shop. One afternoon, this kid, barely 12, walked in with his mom. He looked like he'd been dragged there after a dentist appointment, slumped in a hoodie 3 sizes too big. I crouched next to him. "What's your favorite sneaker of all time?" He mumbled. "The Travis Scott Jordan ones. But my mom says they're dumb." I laughed. "Tell you what, wanna hold one?" His eyes lit up. I grabbed our display pair, handed it to him carefully, like it was made of gold. He looked at his mom. "This guy gets it?" His mom rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. When they left, she whispered a thank you. I stood there, holding the empty display case like it was a trophy. This wasn't just retail. It was storytelling. Culture. Connection. And I was part of it. A few days later, I finally got a reply on one of my leads. A reseller from Tokyo messaged me. "You're lucky. I have a pair. But not cheap." I messaged back, heart pounding. "Send photos." They were legit. I ran them past Ray. He gave a slow, impressed nod. "Make the deal." It wasn't cheap. But I negotiated shipping, insurance, and even a handwritten letter of authenticity from the original buyer. The box arrived 3 days later. Ray opened it like he was defusing a bomb. "You actually pulled this off?" I shrugged. "Told you. Hunger." He laughed, clapped me on the back, and said, "You're getting a raise. And something else." That something else turned out to be a little metal nameplate, assistant manager. I couldn't stop staring at it. It didn't look like much, but to me, it was a golden plaque. Meanwhile, at home, things stayed the same. My dad noticed me coming in later, said, "Working overtime on laces now?" I said nothing. My mom asked if I was still in school. I said yes. She didn't respond. I think that's when I realized I didn't need their validation anymore. Their silence used to fill me with emptiness. Now it just didn't matter. Because my life wasn't paused anymore. It was moving forward. And even though my Jordans were now one sneeze away from complete disintegration, I still wore them every day. Ray once offered me a discount on a new pair. I smiled and said, "Not yet. These still got stories to tell." He nodded. "Fair. But when the day comes, I'll be the one putting those on a pedestal." I didn't say it then, but part of me already had. The day Ray handed me the manager key was a Tuesday. No fireworks. No confetti. Just a quiet, "You ready?" I held the tiny metal key like it was Excalibur. It weighed nothing, but somehow I felt taller. "I trust you," he said. "Not just to run the shop, but to give it vision." That word stuck with me. Vision. I never had it before. I was always just reacting to life, fighting to stay afloat. But now, I had direction. The transition from assistant to full manager was smoother than I expected. Not because I was perfect, but because I cared. The regulars knew me. The staff listened to me. I didn't bark orders, I asked questions. Malik started showing up early just to review new arrivals. Even shy Jasmine, who used to panic over customer returns, now handled complaints like a Jedi master with a refund gun. We started offering a story behind the sneaker shelf. Every week, I'd feature one rare pair and explain its cultural impact. Customers loved it. "I feel like I'm walking into a museum," one guy said. "But I can actually buy stuff." Ray would just nod and smirk from the back. But even as the store blossomed, home stayed gray. My dad barely looked up from his newspaper when I told him I was running the place now. At least you're not begging," he muttered. My mom said, "Retail is temporary. Don't get too comfortable." I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just nodded, finished my toast and left. Because the store was mine. And it didn't need their approval to be real. But then, one Saturday afternoon, they walked in. Together. Wearing their "We're proud of our son" smiles, the kind you pull out for weddings and PTA meetings. Ray greeted them first. "Hey, look who it is." I froze for a second. My dad walked around like he was inspecting a new car. "Nice setup. You run all this?" "Yeah," I said. "I do." My mom eyed the manager, badge on my chest. "Wow. Didn't know you were doing this well." Ray jumped in. "He's the best I've ever had. This place wouldn't be half of what it is without him." My parents looked at each other. That's when I knew. They hadn't come to congratulate me. They'd come to claim me. Later that evening, my dad posted a picture of the store on Facebook with the caption, "Proud of our son's new venture. Always knew he had a strong work ethic." I stared at my screen. New venture? Strong work ethic? These were the same people who used to sigh every time I came home late from deliveries. Who said I was wasting time. Slinging shoes. Who never even asked what I loved about it. I didn't comment. I didn't like it. I just showed Ray the post, and we both shared the same dry, tired laugh. "They always show up when the cameras are on," he said. The thing was, part of me wanted their pride. For years, I fantasized about this exact moment, my parents seeing me succeed. But this wasn't pride. This was branding. Suddenly, I realized something else. They needed my success more than I needed their approval. Because for the first time in my life, I was the one people listened to. I was the one customers asked for by name. I was the one making things work, not because someone handed it to me, but because I'd built it. My Jordans were still holding on by threads, literally duct taped under the sole now, but I wore them like armor. People didn't know where I came from. They didn't know I used to cry on bridges at midnight while listening to Kanye, wondering if I mattered. But I knew. And that was enough. They came back the next weekend. This time with a tray of pastries and their best impression of warm, supportive parents. My mom looked around the store with a new kind of interest. "You know, I've always said you had an eye for detail," she offered, touching one of the floating display shelves like it was some sacred family heirloom. The same shelf I installed alone after staying up until 3 a.m. watching DIY tutorials on YouTube. My dad, meanwhile, handed me a box. Found some of your old baseball cards in the attic. Thought maybe you could sell them here. You know, retro vibes and all that. Retro vibes. He said it like he just discovered slang. Like he thought he was helping. But I wasn't angry. Just tired. Tired of the sudden interest. Tired of being framed as their golden child now that the gold was visible. That evening, they stayed late, long after the store closed. They talked about the old days, about how they knew I had something in me, and how proud they were now that I'd finally figured it out. It felt like a weird audition for something I didn't sign up for. Have you thought about expanding? My mom asked. You know, going big? Online store? Maybe even a franchise? We could help, my dad added. You know, support you now that you're moving up. Support. Like I hadn't supported myself since I was 16. Like I hadn't worked full-time, slept 4 hours a night, and pushed through exam seasons with cold pizza and gas station coffee. Support. Where was that word when I needed rent money? When I had to pretend cafeteria ketchup was tomato soup? I'll think about it, I said. They smiled. And left. Ray and I sat in the back room after. You good? He asked, tossing me a bottle of water. Yeah, I said. Just trying to decide if this is real, or if I'm the product now. He nodded like he'd been there. They're not bad people. But sometimes people only come back when they think they'll look good standing next to you. He didn't push. That night, I pulled out my old iPod again. Battery nearly dead. I hit shuffle and let it play. Kanye's Street Lights came on. It hit different now. Back then, I used to walk those lit-up roads wondering if anyone saw me. Now, I walk those same roads and wonder who I want to see me. The next morning, I came in early. Sat down, opened my notebook, and started drafting something new. Not a business plan. Not a strategy. A policy. I wrote it slowly, carefully. Every word mattered. This store was built from the ground up, by people who showed up when it wasn't convenient, when no one was clapping. Our success belongs to them. Below that, I added. No cosigns needed. The work speaks for itself. I taped it on the back wall, where only staff could see it. Just a quiet reminder. Later that week, my parents came back again. This time with a friend, someone from church, I think. They walked in like ambassadors, introducing me like a hometown hero. Our son runs this amazing place. My mom beamed. He's always had that entrepreneurial spark. Ray caught my eye from across the room. I nodded once. And stepped away from the register. Hey Jasmine, can you take over? I need a break. I walked out the back, took a breath, and called Amanda. My old classmate. We hadn't talked much since graduation, but she always got me. They're trying to rewrite the story. I told her. Well, she said, you've got the pen now. They came in one last time. This time, they didn't bring pastries or praise. They brought papers. My mom stood in front of the checkout counter like she owned the place. She held a folder with a soft smile that didn't reach her eyes. I had a thought, she said, sliding it across the counter. You could name us as co-founders. We'll handle your legal filings, help with tax stuff, maybe even help you get some local press. Co-founders. Press. I looked at the folder but didn't touch it. My dad chimed in, too casual. You could even say it was always a family vision. It'd help your image, make it feel more community-rooted. I let the silence sit between us. Then I reached behind me, pulled out a single sheet of paper, and placed it over theirs. It was a photocopy of something I'd typed months ago. Same policy I taped to the back wall for the team. This store was built by those who showed up when no one else did. My mom's smile wavered. My dad picked up the folder again, slow. We're just trying to help. No, I said quietly. You're trying to benefit. That's different. They didn't say much after that. They left. Ray stepped out from the back as the door chimed shut. You okay? Yeah, I said. Finally. He glanced at the empty counter. They'll tell their version, you know. Let them, I said. I'll be too busy writing mine. That weekend, I cleaned the shop myself. polished the floor, dusted the boxes. I even retired my old Jordans, tied the laces and hung them like a trophy above the register. They weren't just shoes. They were proof of the walk. Amanda came by later that night. She'd brought bubble tea and a playlist. We sat on the curb out front, just like we used to in high school, watching cars pass like they did under the bridge back in my delivery days. "You look tired," she said. "I feel peaceful," I replied. "Same thing." She smiled. "When it's the right kind." Before she left, she glanced at the glowing shop sign. "You ever think about naming it after yourself?" I looked at the storefront. The words read, "No cosigns." She grinned. "Fits." I locked up, music still playing in my headphones. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hungry for approval. I was just whole. For the first time. Kanye's voice buzzed through my earbud as I walked home. "Everything I'm not made me everything I am."